On this episode of Chips and Sparks Garage, we're going to take this shifter out of our donor Mustang and modify it for a 70-year-old truck. We're going to get rid of the 1990s look by getting rid of the bezel and the wiring. We're going to lengthen the shaft, and we're going to machine a custom shift knob to replace the T-handle. Stay tuned. This is the shifter that came with the engine and transmission I got out of the Mustang. I'm going to take it apart and see if I could take that top plate off and cut down some of the plate on it, make it a little smaller so I could modify it, put a longer handle on it to make it look appropriate for this truck. But I'll take it apart and see what we got. Okay, that came apart pretty easily, and it made it a lot smaller footprint, reduced the height a couple inches, and I actually could trim some of this down on the sides if I need to, and maybe some of this bracket for the cable. But I have this shifter boot, generic shifter boot I bought, Speedway. It's got just a log-high boot that goes on there like so, but the trim ring looks like it's going to cover up all that junk pretty easily. Now I just have to see if it'll fit underneath the transmission hump, and we'll do that next. I need to see how much room I've got between the transmission cover and the transmission itself for this shifter. So what I did is I made a wood gauge to fit over top of this transmission cover. This bottom of these boards here is flush with this top surface of the cover, and I have marked here and here and here and here where the hump is on the transmission. So when I take the cover out, I'll be able to put this shifter in place and visualize what kind of clearance issues I might have. It looks like I'm going to be all right. I've got a couple of straight edges to go across here to represent the sheet metal of that cover, and I could actually bolt this to the bottom side of the transmission cover and hook up my cable, and it should work. Okay, this Mustang shifter has a plastic rod in here that could flex and fit around that bend for the detent, for the positive stops for all the selections. So I think, and actually it measures 5/8 of an inch outside diameter and 3/8 of an inch inside diameter for this push rod. So I'm going to get a piece of 5/8 OD 1/8 inch wall tubing, and I should be able to cut this and extend it to whatever length I want, maybe even put an extra bend or two in it and make something similar to this as a push rod. And I could either reuse the old shift knob with the push button, or make a new knob of my liking with a push button. And then when I'm going to trim a lot of this off of here, make it a little bit smaller, and it should bolt to the bottom of that transmission cover. And so I'll bolt it in from the bottom of the cover, and then I could use this shift boot and trim it out. I think it'll look probably pretty good, I think. We'll see how it goes. This is the approximate location of the shifter mounted on top of the transmission cover. It looks like I've got plenty of clearance. Like I said, this represents it being mounted on top of the cover. I'd like to do it underneath, see if I have room to do that. But I think I'm going to trim up the excess on that flange first and see if I can make it a little bit smaller. And I've decided how I'm going to trim this ship's assembly. As you can see, this is a die casting on the top, for the shift mechanism, and underneath is a piece of heavy gauge sheet metal that's formed all together to include this cable anchor point. There is a curvature on the outside of the shift assembly, corresponds with the Mustang's transmission hump. So I'm going to trim on these red lines just through the die cast part, and then I'll straighten out the sheet metal to make a large flange area that I could, that'll let me cut a larger hole in the transmission cover to come in, assemble it from the top, make servicing easier, and they give me a larger seal surface. Okay, using the gauge that I made, I have finalized the position of this shifter, and I'm going to come in 2 inches back from this board and 6 inches from the inside of here to the die casting. With the transmission cover back under the gauge, I was able to transfer the dimensions with the blue tape there. That's my working area. Now I can take it out on the bench and fit it up. All right, I've got to determine the length of the shift shaft. I think I'm going to add about 10 inches to the overall length, which is the bottom of the tape measure itself here. This is in the park position right now. As you drive, it'll be tilted back about like so, and low position about like so. I think I'll have to cut the original shaft an inch or so down. There's some weird machining on the end of it. What I'm going to do is use a step drill and drill a 7/16 diameter into this, and then on the extension I will turn on my lathe a 7/16 diameter spigot on the end of the tube that will line up the ID for the extension and the original one, and then I'll weld it up. After welding, I ground the weld smooth and gave it a coat of flat black paint. Now I need to make a shift knob. I've got some Delrin, black Delrin, various diameters, and I got to come up with some kind of a design, probably like a mushroom shaped knob. I'll make a shank that's maybe like 7/8 of an inch, and bored for the 5/8 of the shaft with a set screw to hold it in place. And I'll make a mushroom shape on top, and I've got a extension rod that just drops in, 5/16 diameter aluminum. Will activate the detent, and I'll just pop a hole through the top of the shift knob and either make a larger diameter button on top or crown this a little bit and make it see how it feels. I could easily change it or modify it, but that'll be what I do next. Okay, I got this project complete. I have the shift knob all complete. I have the button on here. The shift knob, I was going to put a set screw to hold it on, but I made it ended up being a really snug fit, like almost a press fit. You could do it by hand, so I just left it at that. And then this rod just drops in there for the button. I made the like a little subfloor underneath here, 1/4-inch plywood to cover the tunnel, and it also covers up the casting for the shifter, and that's what the shifter boots trimmering is screwed to, and that's what's going to be under the carpet. This is just a mock-up here. When I do the carpeting and the interior, I'll do this all in one piece. It'll be like a little subfloor over that. But it's got full range. I think it looks pretty good. This is the reason I went through all this trouble was the aftermarket shifters for this cable operated transmission. This is an AODE or a 4R70W or AOD, Locar and some of the others. You're looking anywhere from $300 to $400 for an aftermarket vintage shifter. When I say vintage, I mean the extended shaft. And I think this gives me the look. And I've got about probably $35 in materials to do this. The biggest thing was the shift boot. That was from Speedway Motors. That was $25. And the material I had, but figured about $10 worth. But it seems to function nicely, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you like these kind of videos, please subscribe to my channel. There'll be more coming. This is part of the series for my F1 1950 F1 project. Anyhow, thank you for watching.